How you been? What's been good with you?
Well, I got a fancy new piece of attire.
What you got?
It's called a knee brace. It's called a knee brace.
What happened?
You're gonna love this. All right, so settle in for a nice story. I got out of the car wrong.
Huh?
There you go. That's it. That's it. I
You're not that
literally,
old yet, right? You're not that old
dude.
yet.
Apparently,
You're not
we,
that
we
old yet.
we were just going to Walmart to like walk the
Oh,
kid around to burn some energy out of him before bedtime,
right.
and like literally, like I just got out of the car. The doctors are like, pain scale, 1 to 10, and it was
Mhm.
like a one. It was like a one. Like my knee was like for like just a moment. Didn't feel anything else. No pops, no snaps, no nothing.
Okay.
Walking to Walmart, walking around for a while. Okay. That doesn't. Okay. Oh, well, okay. Really. Leg don't. My leg don't want a leg. Mm. Oh. Now I'm hobbling. Oh, okay. I'm hobbling. Okay, we're going home.
Wow.
20 minutes. 20 minutes. And like my knee was just like, fuck you, old man. I was like,
Wow.
as far as we know, didn't sprain, didn't pull anything, just got bothered, inflamed. So they're like, yeah,
Well, maybe it's time.
anti-inflammatory. You want a leg brace? I'm like, "Yeah, give me a knee brace, like please.
So maybe it's to take the pain off your shoulder and arm. Maybe.
Oh man.
Maybe. I don't. Wow, man.
So yeah, fun times, fun times.
Wow. Wow. Huh. Okay.
Um, yeah. Aside from that, any other shenanigans? Uh, my buddies on Discord got the Mid Journey, the art AI installed on the Discord, and
Hmm.
they are just blowing that thing up. Just like throwing prompts left and right at it.
The one that makes up art for you, right?
Yeah,
For
you
for
gotta
futuristic stuff and
it, it's surprisingly versatile. Like
yeah.
you have the more descriptive you can be,
Hmm.
generally you get better results. So
I heard some crazy mess about the something about it having your information. Well, of course it has your information because it has your pictures and stuff, but it was something else tied into that.
well, there was another one, and I think the one you're probably thinking of was my guess is there was a one that was by a Russian company where it's like, hey, put your picture in and we'll redo your picture in like four art styles, right?
That's it. That's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that yeah, okay, I mean, all of these companies, like everyone's stealing data and stuff. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it less concerning. It's just Russia is a little. Um,
Known for being complicated.
yeah. Well, the interesting thing with the Midjourney one, because my buddy Esteban was the one that like activated on Discord,
Mhm.
was that you can include in the prompt a link to a reference image, and it will use that as the primary inspiration. So if you're like a Rebel Starfighter pilot, but you feed it a picture of yourself, it'll
Yeah.
draw you like a Rebel Starfighter pilot.
Okay, I think I've seen an example of that on Instagram where somebody had did like this throwback of the X-Men and it was done in this classic style. It
Yeah,
did the X-Men. It
because
was
you can
something.
say in the style
Okay,
of,
yeah, yeah.
and
That's
so
I've seen
like
that. Yeah.
some of my friends are like in the style of Brahm,
Hmm.
right? Get that old fantasy art style going.
Right.
So they've
That's
been blowing up that fucking Discord in the last 24 hours.
that's pretty dope though. So you ready to do this?
Let's dig in.
All right, let's do it proper. All right. Five, four, three, two. Back again for another one. This is Jay, and tonight I have with me,
Old broken man.
also known as the
Brian, the
Jedi
nerd extraordinaire.
Nerd Extraordinaire.
Survivor of lightsaber duels and getting out of cars incorrectly.
How are you doing this evening, man?
Aside from the knee, I'm doing good. Um, Definitely saw both of these episodes.
Yeah.
And slight spoiler, a lot happier with these ones.
Okay.
A lot. We'll get that out of the way first.
I'm glad to hear it. I was, like I said, I was a little surprised on the last one. It wasn't bad. You had legitimate gripes, I'll say, which was very fair. And I was curious on your feelings on these. I felt the same way. Yeah, it was a lot. Once again, to me, they were kind of basic and simple along the same journey. And I'll say that mainly for the second one. The third one is a whole different thing, which we'll get into.
Oh yeah.
But the second one for sure is almost, to me, a nice continuation of the first one, where it's a basic story, but it's just done so well that you kind of like...
Some of the setup that they did pays off a lot quicker than I thought it was. A lot quicker.
Yes. Okay, so you know what? Let's just go ahead and get into it. I guess, so season 3, episode 2, The Mines of Mandalore.
Yeah, where I did not expect Mando to get to so goddamn quickly.
Really? He's been talking about it forever. Maybe because of the other stuff that was in the book of Boba Fett that we saw, that where it was all brought up about, hey, this is how you can redeem yourself. Because we've been hearing about
It seemed like
the
it would have been
waters forever.
harder. Like,
once we figured out that it wasn't on fire, or you could actually go to the planet and he had proof of life, it's not too much you could really do to hold it up once you already said that it exists. So it shouldn't have been too much harder, right?
yeah, and to be clear, like the trials that Din, I've realized I've been calling him Jin instead of Din, but the trials that he goes through to get to the mines, like, is appropriate, absolutely appropriate. I just thought there was going to be more episodes getting to the mine. I'm not upset that was truncated.
Okay.
I was just surprised. I figured there was going to be more obstacles in the way. So it was like, oh, we're just okay. We're here. It's happening. All right.
Right.
Like, so that was just surprising. It was surprising.
Was it a pleasant surprise, or would you have wanted it kind of noodled out a little bit longer, or were you fine with
Well,
it?
you know, if all the extra obstacles are there to give us more character development, then yes. But we got other character development anyway that worked. I think I did see some people complaining online, like little babies, that it wasn't Din's character development, but
Are
it
you
was
serious?
Bo-Katan. People, man, I think someone's gonna complain about something. So
It's just like it's just always going to be something. But it's a trip, because sometimes you hear less complaints about a bigger mess. And so when things are pretty much on point, it's just surprisingly how crazy the problems become.
right,
You know, but teach its own. But I'm kind of surprised about that. I'm kind of glad they went ahead and moved on. And plus with this show, it's a lot of back and forth. And I'm glad they do it in a way because you get to revisit characters that you're familiar with or you want to know more about, and they're fun characters that you remember. Unlike how when certain shows and certain movies, you have these characters that you care nothing about, and once you see them, you want them to promptly leave out
right.
so you can get to who you want to get to. So with this one, we start off with, last when we left Mando, his thing was he wants that particular droid, right?
Yes.
And he needs to have that piece. He needs that memory drive. And so he has this whole side quest to get the memory drive. And who does he go back to? The garage. He goes back to the garage. And what's the
I don't.
the mechanic?
Pell. I think it's Pell.
Okay. That sounds
It's
about
like
right.
Amy Circus, I believe, is the actress.
Yeah, that kooky mechanic
and she's
chick.
doing a fucking con. I loved this bit. It's a bit before Mando shows up.
Yeah.
It's the what is it? They're in Mos Espa, and it's the Bunta Eve celebration, which is the same thing that the pod racing was from the Phantom Menace. So it's like that's happening in the background, and this guy basically is like, oh man, all these parts are missing from my car. Someone like ripped off all these parts from my speeder. And she's like, well, okay, you know, I'll get it fixed. It'll be tough. You know, I was going to go and party, but I can't. Like, and she's like, okay, I'll get your stuff. You have fun at the thing. And she waits for him to leave. Like, he's gone. He's gone. He's like, she calls it the Jawas. Like, clearly she's working with the Jawas to intentionally rip the parts off this guy's car and then pay the Jawas to put the parts back on, and they split the difference. It's it was just so fucking hilarious.
And she's a nut because she's like, pay him a different color so they won't realize it's the same pieces being brought back to them. Yeah, so repaint them first. So I thought that was crazy. That was crazy.
Yeah, I saw a thing where someone was noting that, like, you know, you only see the one Rhodian in there, but like the Rhodian is really well dressed, right? Mm-hmm. Just like Carl Weathers was on Navarro. Like, it seems possibly that Mos Espa is prospering a little more. So like, is that because of Boba Fett, or is there other things, or is it just one random rich guy? Who knows?
Right. She did bring up Boba Fett. Which I thought was pretty interesting, that she did kind of name drop him. So that's how the world is connected. So he goes there. She gets to see her little friend Grogu. You know, I love their little relationship and stuff.
He's got new moves.
Yeah. And so she tries to sell him on a droid, R5. It was so funny. I like the little gag where, you know, she's kind of pumping it up like he's this great droid and get him for a great price, and you know, I don't have space for him. Oh, you know, and then she fixes the ship so he could fit in there and everything. And then he's not quite sounding right. And she's talking about be careful because he's kind of, you know, kind of skittish and shaky.
So do you know which droid that is?
The R5?
Yeah. We're going to go way back. Is literally the first movie. So remember when the Jawas come to Luke's farm and they're trying to sell droids to his uncle? That's the R5 that malfunctions. What? And R2 goes instead.
What?
That's R5.
That's dope.
It's not just that model, but it's that droid. And that apparently is like Dave Filoni, because I think they were working on earlier live action stuff, like earlier seasons of The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett. Yeah. And he was like sort of prioritizing that droid and giving it a little bit of screen time in the background. Wow. And like, no, I got plans for R5. It's like, so, and the thing is like, okay, it's a cowardly droid. Yeah. Cool, that's fine, character trait. And it's so funny that like Pell is like, R5 droid. He's like, I can't. Converted the starfighter. He's like, I can just swap that part back out and put the droid back in there. And it's like, okay, what's going on? Like, it felt like they got a little wishy-washy with what they wanted to do between Book of Boba Fett with that starfighter and now in Mando 3. I did see something about, and I haven't seen this enough on reputable sources yet, that supposedly Kathleen Kennedy was interfering a little bit with Book of Boba Fett and wanting to bring back Grogu and other things. And I don't know if that's true because I haven't seen any official sources on it.
It makes sense, but then it also could be a move to save face. It works perfectly for both.
It's one of those things where it's like, unless someone comes out, like, because basically it's a supposedly a battle of wills between Jon Favreau and Kathleen Kennedy, and it's like, unless one of them comes out and says something, I just not gonna pay attention to it, because
that's fair.
Right? It's like it's speculations. Who knows? But okay, we can get R5 back in your starfighter, and you can fly him over to Mandalore. And still, in my head, I'm just like, you just need to know if it's poisonous.
Right.
Why don't you get a droid that can fly?
But wouldn't he have like
those?
Or shoot a sensor out there?
Probe?
Right. Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure why, aside from Dave Filoni being like, I want the R5 astromech because I'm a total Star Wars nerd, and I'm gonna put the droid in there because I want the droid in there. And it's like, if that's it, okay, fine. I mean, it's not something that's like, oh, it's so distracting from the rest of the narrative. It's just like, all right.
Yeah, it was definitely comedy relief from it being skittish in the first place to them, putting it in there and then having problems.
Oh, wait, no, my brain. I remember. No, I remember exactly why.
Why is that?
Well, fast forward a few scenes when they get to Mandalore and they do their exploring and da-da-da, and there's no point in spoiling it, but Din gets hurt, captured, and Grogu is trying to escape to go get help. Grogu cannot fly the ship. The astromech droid can fly the ship.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's why they needed to get an astromech droid back in the ship, because they were going to take Din out of commission.
Right.
And importantly, now this also ties back even into the previous episode, where Mando, before they get ambushed by the pirates, is starting to explain to Grogu the interface. So like a Mandalorian has to be able to navigate the galaxy. And then they get they get interrupted by pilots. And that wasn't like just a random throwaway thing, because we see in the beginning of this episode, he's telling him like, this is this and this is, I think it's when they fly into Mandalore, the Mandalore system. He's like, there's Mandalore on the map. There's
where I was raised.
That's where I was born. That's a moon. And then over here, that's where Bo-Katan is. We're going to go over there.
Right.
So now we and the audience know where in the UI. So when Grogu points to that spot in the UI, R5 is like, okay, cool, I can fly us there.
Yeah, there was a lot of disposition dumping in this episode. I didn't mind it though. I thought, but put it like this: I knew what they were doing when they were doing it, but it was, but I noticed it was very heavy in this episode. But I didn't mind.
Yeah, I didn't track that they were setting up in that scene where it's like, here's this and here's this and here's that. I was just like, okay. So he's showing him the stuff, and it was like, I'm being a dad. I'm teaching you to be a good Mandalorian.
Right.
But my brain wasn't suspicious enough to be like, oh, they're setting up a thing where Grogu's gonna need to know the interface.
Yeah, I didn't either, but I thought it was. But I figured, like, I didn't know how it tied together. But I did think it was funny how R5 didn't want to get out of the ship, and he had to push the button to eject his ass out.
Like,
I'm lowering you out. You're getting out. So it was just fun. And then the thing, hits the corner, and then he doesn't come back. So then he has to get out and go after him. I'm just like, what is? So to me, it was funny. It was just kind of, I don't know. I like it. I thought it was funny. But
it's one of those things where it's like, if they had followed the logic of, I need a droid to go check the atmosphere, check if it's poisonous, check if it's radiation, and navigate on its own, I wouldn't pick an astromech droid. I'd pick a droid that could fly, a droid that could walk, But because the writers knew that they were going to need someone to fly Grogu to go get Bo-Katan, it's an astromech droid.
Yeah. So when he goes over to try to find, when Mando leaves out, he goes to try to find R5. He runs into these underground creatures. I guess are they called the Alamites?
Yes.
Okay, and then so it was kind of neat. I like the battle. He once again he pulled out the dark saber, but he could still barely lift it or control it. So he's still trying to work it out. But he's better than he was last time. He got some stabby stabs in there.
He was struggling. Like you can see, there's a bit where he squares off against the three of them, and he's just like both hands like barely keeping it up.
Yeah,
and it's like you gotta figure that out, bud. A nice contrast to what happens later.
Yeah. And then you have like the mystery of the Mandalorian unfolds. So he's trying to figure out the what's what. And,
the dude seeing the interior of that domed city. So I've only seen like mostly just clips of like the Clone Wars and Rebels and stuff, but like for people that have watched those series all the way through, that's callbacks, because like all the stuff with Bo-Katan, and like the other thing I didn't mention last time is Bo-Katan's sister was like the head of Mandalore. She was the pacifist elected leader of Mandalore.
Wow.
She was also Obi-Wan's unofficial, not a girlfriend.
Huh.
Uh-huh. So like just like Anakin and Padme,
Yeah.
right? Ran into each other, had some feelings. The difference is Obi-Wan followed the Jedi code. So he clearly had very strong feelings for her.
Yeah.
And she was killed in a civil war in Mandalore.
Wow.
So there's like all this backstory there, and then seeing the ruins of that metropolis, it looked fucking amazing and tragic. It probably is the feeling that goes with it, but yeah, that was really interesting seeing them going through the ruins of I don't know the name of the capital, but that's what all their cities look like.
That was impressive. So so what it had me kind of thinking, Mando being there, finally realizing that the air is breathable, you know, there's creatures there. It kind of made me wonder. So the guild, do you think that they really thought that the planet was destroyed and they couldn't go back? Do you think they really didn't know that, or you think they just kind of
the coven?
Yeah, do you believe that they really thought that it was uninhabitable, or that it was destroyed?
So
because it seemed like it could have been easily found out. Like they could have just took one trip there and then figured out all the stuff that was there. As far as, because the way they described it, it seemed like when he said he wanted to go there, right, and he wanted to redeem himself, they were pretty much saying like it was impossible. And almost when he said he's going to do it because he has, you know, a sliver of hope and some evidence of this possibly being an option, even it was still kind of like, well, if you think so, then go ahead and go for it if you want to. So it wasn't discouraging, but it almost seemed like it was trying to say like it was a fool's errand. And so I do kind of believe that they don't know, but why wouldn't they know?
So Matt Colville has this whole thing that for role-playing games where, you know, as the dungeon master, the players and their characters ask you questions, like they roll to see, do I know this from the history? And so you might make your roll, and then the DM will tell you a cultural truth, right? This is what everyone in the culture says. That doesn't mean it's true. It's just what the culture thinks at the time, right? So why would they be limited in that? Well, again, they're sort of considered the religious fanatics. They might see the fall of Mandalore as, you know, a mythical thing, and it is doomed and it is cursed. And so they're like, well, why would we go and test to verify? Right? Wow. It might, that's one approach. It might also be like, remember, the Empire fucked that planet up, and they might have also set a blockade around it for who knows how long, of just like, don't go here or we will shoot you down, right? So there could be a lot of reasons why they may not think that the risk and the expenditure of time or resources is worth investigating, right? So I'm also kind of glad that it's just like not this long plot point where it's like, oh, it's poison, but it's not really poison. It's being actively it's like no complicated. It's just like, oh, it's not poison. I'm like, okay, cool, go.
Right, and that's and it being that simple. That's why it threw me off. Because if it was different, if it was like some kind of, I don't know, some kind of barrier or something that projected to make him think it was like destroyed, but it was just a hologram, something. But it was nothing like I said, they could have just stopped by on the way home and just been like, let's. Oh, for old time's sake, let me just stop into the old hood, and you heard it was decimated, but you go there and it's like, oh, there goes Thompson's Market.
Well, you know, I think a developing theme for this season, I mean, just looking at the chapter titles, the apostate, religiously themed, and then episode 3 is the convert, right? There's a lot of discussion about faith and belief, and as we see, like the poison is we assume this thing exists and is real and is bad. Oh, it's not. But then we also think other things, Bo-Katan thinks other things are not real or you know, just mumbo jumbo. Oh, well, So I think there's a little bit of they're playing with that sort of thematically.
That's true, and it is on different levels. It is
because it's kind of the inverse of what happens with Bo-Katan.
Yeah.
This episode and a little bit towards the end of episode 3.
Can't wait to get into that. Okay.
Oh yeah, that episode 3's got so much to unpack. Holy shit.
So Mando ends up getting captured, and he's getting captured by this kind of
General Grievous-esque cyborg.
Exactly.
Is how I've heard him described.
Yeah, that's pretty much kind of like what he is. Matter of fact, I think he's almost cooler because he's module. Because he could just, load up into you can load up into any kind of mech body or anything he wants, and he just travels between shells like he's.
It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell how much of him is left, aside from
that eye.
His eye,
and maybe some brain
meats. Clearly some brain meats because he's doing stuff down there.
Right.
But this cyborg, for lack of a proper name, basically ambushes Jin, captures him, knocks him out, carts him away, and Grogu is thankfully far enough back that this huge, his big cyborg body is like a giant sort of scorpion crab thing.
Man, that thing was so realized and creepy. Dude. They did such a great job on that. Even the movement and stuff.
It looked so fucking good.
That could have been so corny. It could have been. It was so as good as the show is, it's almost too good for that show. I would expect to see that in something else. You know what I mean? Like a high-end sci-fi movie or something. That thing was well done.
So you'll love this. I just looked up the director for this episode. Her name is Rachel Morrison, and she directed Fruitvale Station and Black Panther. She was the cinematographer on Fruitvale Station and Black Panther.
Okay.
So that says some things about how it was shot, because I'm sure, she's obviously going to be working with a stunt team, right, for the fight that happens later on. But the look of everything,
it was on point,
where the camera was,
it felt like a movie, like a sci. Like I said, it felt like I said, it almost felt out of place. But I'm glad it was there. But I was surprised that I'm like, oh, this is kind of okay. They're not playing on this, so okay, that's right.
Yeah, when shit started going hard on this episode. There was a lot.
Thanks for sharing that tidbit. That's dope.
Yeah.
That thing started draining Mando, so I'm like, okay, so you draining him for his juices, and I'm thinking where are you gonna put it? You don't have enough flesh to take any kind of blood.
Take what he can get.
It was crazy. It's
right, and who knows what else he's catching down there? So a survivor.
Yeah,
who knows who or what that was originally.
Yeah.
It might be, another. I'm trying to remember if Grievous was a Geonosian. I think the Geonosians cyborged him up. I don't know if he was a Geonosian, though. I think he was a different species.
Okay. We had Baby Yoda trying to do his thing and try to use the Force to free his daddy. that didn't quite work out, so he had to run for it.
He did try to free him, which good on him. He did not immediately run away, but he did try to free him, and then it was just like, nope. Horror movie, run away.
Fast.
Float away in his little cradle.
Right.
Which then he takes all the way back up to the surface, and the brutes are there again. He's just like, I'm a Jedi, get out of the way. He just throws one of them back.
Right, you just see this one of those things just flying, Alamite. You just see him flying out the cave.
He was yeeted out of the cave.
Yeah, and so so Grogu hops in the ship, points out that where he needs to go.
Little guy really needs to expand his vocabulary.
Yeah, he does. His little cute baby talk. But he goes back to Bo-Katan. You know what? It was interesting. Okay, so when the droid came to her and told her that, that you have a visitor coming back, and she's like, you know what? I'm going to get rid of him for good. Did she mean she was going to really get rid of him for good, or just kind of tell him off really well?
I took that as she's... Yes, I think that is she was going to tell him off.
Okay. All right. So...
I in sort of looking at sort of her characterization and story arc through earlier shows, she's not one that just like casually murders people, especially not people she knows. Like,
Okay.
she's a very complicated character. It's definitely made mistakes. Like, so for context, the Civil War that she participated in as part of Night Watch, right? That's sort of the markings on her helm. Like, they backed the side that was partnering with Darth Maul. And Darth Maul used the Darksaber to kill the leader of her faction.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, fought him in combat, killed him, took the Darksaber.
Wow.
Good times. So, like, yeah, there's a lot to unpack with Bo-Katan. But I didn't read that as, I'm going to kill him. How dare he come and try and talk to me again? It was more like, does this fool not know I'm sad face? Go away. Go, like, she's gonna tell him off basically. But then Baby Yoda comes up and is like, oh shit, all right, game on.
Yeah, we gotta find him. We gotta go back and find him. So I thought that was pretty dope. She goes back, gets to the
she doesn't hesitate. She doesn't hesitate. And this is one of the nice things about like Bo-Katan is she, like Din, is a woman of action as opposed to a man of action. She's just like, all right, here we go. Like, she doesn't hesitate when people that she is willing to fight for are in trouble. And then they get on her spiffy ship.
That thing was dope.
I think, I don't know if that's a stolen Imperial ship or not, but whatever it is, I think the coloring inside indicates that it's not, because it's just a little too colorful. It's not all black and red.
But I think that it might be because something came up later on where it was kind of mentioned, like if you steal in their ships or something like that, then they're going to come after you or something.
Yeah. Well, and she mentioned the previous episodes of Stolen Fleet. So I don't know if that's tied up there. The other weird thing that I saw randomly where people were talking about like the color of blaster bolts.
Okay.
So Bo-Katan's, her handguns, and also the rear blaster on her ship, they shoot yellow blaster bolts. And the Mandalorians are apparently, at least thematically, the only ones that use that color for weapons and stuff, aside from like yellow lightsabers or something, right? Because it's all like different types of gas or whatever. So I don't know if they modified the gun or it's a Mandalorian ship or whatever, but so they might be talking about the fleet that they stole, or they might also be talking about that ship, because man, as we see later, not a bad ship at all.
Not a bad ship at all. That thing was dope. That thing was, in the way it was moving and stuff, but we'll get to that. But so she goes back to Mandalore. She runs into the Alamites.
Fucking lays those fools out.
Man, she gets her hands on the Darksaber, and we see how it should be used. Oh goodness, she tore them up. She tore them up, man.
Yeah, she fucked them up. And they tried to ambush her too. They tried to ambush her too, and she was like, Grogu, step back, pulled out the blaster, shot out the ceiling that they were hiding in.
I thought it was so cool because she was so quiet, and she just kind of like scooted them to the side, kind of pushed them. That was so, because you didn't know matter of fact, you didn't know because you didn't see anything, but she just kind of, she read the room. How about that?
Right. She's probably got scanners in her helmet too.
That's right.
Right. But yeah, no, she laid them out. And then when they get in and she confronts the cyborg.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And you catch that cyborg in the middle of siphoning out Mando. Right?
And it's like, okay, no time to waste. It goes right to taking this thing apart. And so the cyborg has like a humanoid-esque, like small body that came out of the big sort of scorpion thing. So he's going around getting the blood out of Din, and she just comes in quick and just like stabs that guy right in the chest, his cyborg chest, drops him, but then his head comes off
Yep.
skitters away and climbs into the giant scorpion tank.
Yeah.
And then has to fight that.
And she's chopping off limbs and everything smooth like butter, and she's
Like
just ducking and dodging, and then she's sliding underneath him and getting the underbelly. It was just so beautiful.
Turning on the forearm shield like goddamn Captain America.
Yes, it was just that fight scene was dope. It was so dope. She tore that thing up.
An interesting thing too is like, so I saw someone talking about like, she doesn't have any problems with the Darksaber at all.
No.
Clarity of action.
It's almost like you take it. It's at home with you. You can do more than I can.
Because the funny thing is, someone was pointing out, like even going back to when was it end of season 2 when Din fought Moff Gideon. Mm-hmm. Moff Gideon wasn't struggling with it. He wasn't doing anything elegant.
No,
he's clearly not trained in like saber combat. But he wasn't like, right. He's clarity of vision, clarity of action. Like, so it's going to be interesting if they want Din to keep the Darksaber, what that breakthrough is going to be, so that isn't a burden for him to use. So otherwise, she's a perfect fucking candidate.
Right. So what do you think his holdup with it is? For him to be so like wanting the creed and this is the way and all this kind of stuff, he seemed like he's very straightforward and simple, right? At least he appears to be that way. What do you think his holdup is?
It's not, like I saw someone saying like, you know, it's unity of mind and body. And it's like, yeah, no, he's an excellent combatant. He's an excellent combatant. Right, because you can see even as he's fighting the Alamites, like he's struggling with the sword, and it's like, okay, I can't get this guy with the sword. I'm just gonna pull my knife out and stab him like on the fly. Right. He's an excellent combatant. That's not the problem. Like the whole sort of thing, because you get to see in Rebels where the Jedi, like he was an escaped Padawan, is training Sabine, the other Mandalorian, on how to wield the Darksaber, because she's having the exact same struggle. And it sort of came down to just absolute unity of purpose, right? You were absolutely focused on what you're doing, not only long term, but in the moment. You can't have any distractions, because unlike regular lightsabers, there's just a truck ton more energy coursing through the Darksaber, and even without requiring the person to be a Force user, right? Because it's for a Mandalorian, you have to be directing that energy. You have to be absolutely undistracted and unified. So it's not necessarily like, oh, I got ADHD when I'm fighting, I get distracted. I think it's more meant like unity of purpose of who you are and what you're doing. And I don't think Mando has that yet. He hasn't found his calling. So, which is also appropriately somewhat religiously themed, like Moff Gideon and Bo-Katan, sort of opposite ends, are absolutely committed to their calling. Bo-Katan is just failed, like, to serve and protect her people, right? Moff Gideon is totally committed to whatever evil shit he's doing. Like, if you asked Din, like, what's his calling, probably wouldn't have an answer. And if he said bounty hunter, it'd be like, you're doing a lot of non-bounty hunter stuff then.
Good point.
Right? Because that's just a job. That's just a way to pay the bills. Right? That's not his purpose. He hasn't found his purpose. Right? Once he has clarity of purpose, and I am sure they are going to find a way where that clarity of purpose is going to get articulated, and then we're going to see an immediate change in him using the Darksaber. It'll probably be in the middle of combat, and it'll probably be some representation to what he thinks his purpose is, and he's gonna focus on that and be like, that's it. And then he's gonna be just like Bo-Katan, and he's gonna be fucking shit up, right?
And then he gonna lose it. You think he gonna keep it?
I don't know.
You think he gonna keep it?
I will stand by my bet from last time. I'll give it to Sabine, even though I was doubting it. I will buy you a movie ticket if I'm wrong. But, I mean, they might. It's funny, I was watching overly sarcastic productions on YouTube. They do trope talks, and they talk about tropes. And they were talking about the loner trope. And they literally have a picture of, like, our buddy Mando in the thumbnail. And it's like, he's a loner, right? Like, Wolf and Cub is a loner, and there's different types of loners, but like it just still seems like too much of a jump.
Okay.
Unless they do a lot of work here, right, in the remaining episodes, because there's 8 episodes this season. They got 5 episodes to turn him into a leader. I don't know. But it might be one of those things where it's like, at the end of this season, his coven, the other followers of the creed, they bow to him not because he asks them to, but because they want to follow him. And then season 4 is, what does that mean? How does he deal with that? Right? Because 5 more episodes is not enough to make that transition to him thinking of himself as a leader, but other people might think they want to follow him, right?
Right. So after his triumphant, after him being saved.
Yeah, it's more like Bo-Katan's triumphant rescue. Yeah. This is the thing, like, people were like, oh, why is it talking about Bo-Katan? It's like, dude, what, like, one, a man can get rescued sometimes. Yeah. Like, be cool, dudes. Be cool. Stop screaming your insecurities where everyone can hear them.
I kind of take it as, like, the character of Mando, his play is spinning and it's strong. You know, it got perfect balance, the rotation, it got speed and all that kind of stuff, right? They did such a good job on him. We don't have to worry about that plate. So now let's play with the other plates. Because they need some tending to too. Because we might need them to spin on their own as well. So why not take advantage of it?
This was the interesting thing. Because remember, I was lamenting with episode 1. It's like, oh man, you're not really getting me invested in Mando with his new quest, right? You know, and they at least solved that in the short term by, like, we're just gonna sneak this episode in here and make the main character Bo-Katan, right? And not exclusively, because, like, there's still a big moment for Mando. Like, spoilers, he gets to the Mines of Moria, but everything that's happening sort of emotionally is not Mando, it's Bo-Katan. It's like we are following her emotional journey through this episode, and it makes it so much better. You know, it's so funny, like, again, I was that video of, like, the trope talk about, you know, the loner, is that there's a certain type of loner where they just wander into other people's stories, right? At the episodic sort of approach, and then
the Incredible Hulk.
Right, the Incredible Hulk, right? Sanjuro going back to Akira Kurosawa, right? And then they move on, and then they run into someone else, and they deal with that situation, right? And it's like, in this episode, Mando's kind of doing the same thing. Yeah, he knows Bo-Katan already, but it's like, she just gets pulled into his thing, and we get to see all of her sort of, her engagement emotionally, and
and
it's really good. It's really good.
And I think what makes it special in a way too is normally when stuff like that happens, the person is pulled in or is pushed in there, right? And so sometimes it can be offensive, like, I didn't come for that. But you see her trying to keep herself out of it, but she keeps getting pulled in. Like, she's she's having resistance, right? And so it's almost kind of like, if she's there and you don't want her there, or you're not looking for her to be there, neither is she. And so you don't take it as her being trying to take over things or run things, because she don't want to be there either. She kind of wanted to sulk and be in her corner. And so when you see her, it's kind of like, oh, okay, I'm taking it because she's not trying to bogart. She don't want it anyway. So it's that whole thing of, you know, concerned about certain attentions. You don't have to worry about that, because you could tell she's a reluctantly being pulled in this too. And so you can't use that against her, because she don't want to be there either.
Well, and the thing is, like, complaints aren't like against her. It's like, why did the writers?
Right. But
yeah,
they'll blame the character though. They will
right.
be like, she's trying to.
But yeah, oh man. So she rescues Jin. They kill the cyborg. Blah 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 blah. And then it's like, all right, let's go to the mine. She's like, I'm here already. I might as well just show you the rest of the way.
Yeah, let's take you.
And you get all these little bits of like her sort of like, yeah, this is basically like my hometown, and you get some of the sorrow of the tragedy of not just her but like all of Mandalore in the ruins of this once thriving metropolis.
And me just visiting New York and my friend trying to, my friend taking me around to see like the different sites and giving me history as it went along. It reminded me of that, like kind of like you having that personal journey of, and see what this sign says about it, and this is where it brought something to it, and also kind of a little insight on how she felt about like some of the stuff she might have thought was like, like the background about her dad and the presentation of her
scene.
Yeah, her reciting
those little scenes were so good, because
yes.
like there's the whole, she's they're walking through the caves and she's talking about like her father died defending Mandalore, and Din just like stops on the spot and just like very solemnly with a little head bow, like, this is the way. And
for the sacrifice, that's what we do.
He didn't, and again, what Jin is bringing, I think, to Bo-Katan is this just earnest sincerity.
Yeah.
Right? He's just what he is. Right? There's no games. Right? So, and part of that, as we'll get into with the next episode, is that's part of his tribe, his coven's version of the creed. It's utterly sincere. And she's basically a princess. She's literally a princess, like talking about like, oh yeah, the princess, I had to go down and do the creed. Like, I didn't want to piss off my dad. I didn't really want to do it. Right. It's like, I'm the spoiled rich kid who's also a badass, but clearly like I was the spoiled rich kid, like, that had to put up with a bunch of the stuff. And this wasn't a solemn ceremony for me. This was a big public event that I had to do out of obligation, right? And I think we can see how that might have robbed her of the sincerity and the solemnness of what this swearing of the creed and bathing in the mines is supposed to be.
Yeah. It's almost like what you said earlier too, but also it's kind of like everybody have different layers to the same situation. And so for her, it's like, pomp and circumstances. So she sees it as a thing for show, and it's kind of empty. It's going through procedure, and he's about that life.
Right. And
they're talking about the same thing, but to her, it's like, it was cute for me to do it versus that's my life. That's my creed. I die by these things, and I was just like, wow. And to see those together, and they both of their perspectives aren't disrespectful, but there's definitely a difference on how they see it. Because
basically Din is supposed to be, the low-key religious fanatic, right? But he's not sanctimonious. He's not holier than thou. He is the humble version of living that creed. He just goes about doing it. And it's, in that way, it's not a harsh slap in the face to Bo-Katan, but it's, I took it as refreshing for her. Like, yeah, this guy really believes it, not in a silly way.
Right.
Like, if she had just heard, someone describing Din doing all these things, she would have been like, oh yeah, religious fanatic, right? He even calls like his sect that. Yeah. But she sees the genuineness of it in Din. And for like empty pomp and circumstance, like, so I went to Catholic school, mom's Catholic, dad's some Buddhist Taoist thing, but by like 7th, 8th grade, I was like, I'm not in. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. And that's when I was like, I don't believe in, I don't think I believe in anything. And so I stayed in Catholic school for like another 2-3 years, having to go to mass, having to do all these things. And so it's like, if you don't believe in these things and they're forced, then they become even more empty to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if she's forced to do these things, this is why, like, when I was teaching, I would never force the students to do the Pledge of Allegiance, which also you're not allowed to do. Ladies and gentlemen, if you think teachers are allowed to do that, no, they are not. You are legally not allowed to force students to do the Pledge of Allegiance. And that's the right way to do it, because if the pledge, which is supposedly supposed to have meaning, and to many people it does, if you force someone to do that pledge, it robs it of meaning, because then it is coerced. It is not freely given, right? So that whole scene up to Jin falling in the water was so wonderfully solemn.
Yeah, so she does take him to his destination, the point of his journey, the point of his mission. She walks him to his redemption, basically. So she looks into his eyes and she says to him,
well, for starters, you have to purify yourself in the waters of Lake Minnetonka.
What?
You have to purify yourself in Lake Minnetonka.
Purify yourself in the waters of Lake Minnetonka. He takes off his cape and walks in.
Well, the clever thing with the writing is, like, she's reading a plaque, and the plaque is going to set up a big reveal here, because she's reading sort of sing-songy, right? Like, oh, this silly little da-da-da-da-da, it's so quaint. But it's like, if you read it solemnly, it's like, oh, this is supposed to be a big deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's the legend of the original Mandalore and the slaying of the mythosaurs and da-da-da-da. And she's like, and then he's just like, yep, here I go, and just like takes off the cloak, like, boop, 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 I'm gonna walk in. He's running his hands through the water, and then he didn't check how deep the stairs were.
Right. He just disappears as he's talking about his redemption. And
hey, wait a minute, that's...
yeah, he just disappears.
And at first I was just like, the fuck? And thank God she didn't, because she was just like, whoop, whoop, here we go. Threw her helmet on,
right,
like, sealed it up, and like jumped right in. Yeah. And so this is also a clever bit, and they've established it before, but the helmets seal.
Yeah, that's
right?
what the sound effect.
Which was important when he wasn't sure if there was poison or not, right. But also, oh, they're watertight. Okay, that's also good.
Right. And so he didn't have his jetpack or anything to propel him back up. So
he took it off.
He was just a lead pipe that just dropped to the bottom of the...
And she jetpacked down.
Yes.
And I loved a little bit where, like, because I was like watching this because he's like out of sight very quickly.
Yes.
And she turns on her headlamp.
Yep.
And I'm like, for a half second, I'm like, how is she going to find him? Like, oh, follow the bubbles. Follow the bubbles. And it seems like that's what she's doing. And then at a certain point, she turns off the headlamp because she's like, he's going to have a light on. Yep. I can follow the light. She follows all the way. And it's way the fuck down there.
Yes, it is.
Way the hell down there. She grabs him. He's knocked out. She's jetpacking him up. And the thing that probably made 100,000 fans shit their pants. She's got the headlight back on. Yep. She's going up, and like her flashlight's playing over like the rock wall and da-da-da. And that is not a rock wall. Those are scales, and that is a giant fucking eye looking at her.
Yes.
And you get this shot, and she has a reaction where all the bubbles come out of her helmet. It's like, and it's the mythosaur. And you can tell because it's got the giant horns coming out of the tusk coming out of the side of the head. And I was in 1,000 years not expecting that. 1,000 years not expecting that. And it was so amazing. She comes up and she's like, oh fuck, comes out, and part of me is like, is that thing gonna fucking eat them? Doesn't eat them, doesn't come out of the water.
Right. I just knew somebody gonna get pulled back in once they got out.
Right. So knocks some life into Jin, and I think that's where the episode ends.
It pretty much ends there. Well, he wakes up. And
he wakes up.
He's okay. He's coughing and blah blah blah. He's talking about like, you know, she makes a comment about I would take you to my place for blah 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 to eat something, but since you are restored, you wouldn't take off your helmet again. So
right, you're not going to eat anytime.
You're not going to
soon.
eat anything anyway. But then she did on the way out was say, "Did you see anything while you were down there?" And I thought it was interesting. I was like, why would she ask him that if she know that she saw it?
Because she doubts what she saw. Like, so there's so let me be clear. She knows she saw a giant fucking creature down there that looks like the mythosaur.
Mm-hmm.
But it's supposed to be, as the name kind of implies, a myth. She didn't believe it. And one, even if she believed that the mythosaurs did exist, which is not unreasonable, she didn't think, because it's supposed to be the mythosaur will return to herald the return of the Mandalore, the leader. That was the thing that she was reading. Like, so it's like literally myth and prophecy that the mythosaur will return to herald the return of the Mandalore to like basically rally the Mandalorians.
Wow.
So that's why she's like, did you see anything? Because I just saw another ghost. And as we see, she doesn't fucking tell anyone.
No.
Because she's still processing it. Like it hit her like lead weight.
She's like, I saw Jesus 3 bus stops away. He's on his way.
Yeah.
He's on the bus. He's on the next bus coming this way. Did y'all see him at the bus stop when we drove by? Oh, I think he's coming this way.
Yeah.
He's taking the number 1. He's coming this way. Anybody see that?
Yeah, she doesn't tell Din anything.
No.
He just wakes up and like, what happened? He's like, I slipped. I fell all the way down. Like, just like, yeah, I pulled you up. You didn't see it? Nope, didn't see anything. Okay, cool. Let's get the fuck out of here. So he takes a sample of the water so he can go back and like, I've been there.
Which I thought was kind of interesting. Cause I was thinking like, how would that prove it? But I'm glad he did because
the armor's got some sort of test thing where it's like a chemical composition. But yeah, like so, because now we're getting into episode 3.
Hey, it's Jay. If you enjoyed my conversation with Ryan, please check out our episodes where we talked about The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, Spider-Man No Way Home, and the movie Batman. Thanks for listening, and until next time, peace.